Hello, welcome back to How to Make a Game in Unity for Beginners. My name is Dustin, and last time what we did is we set it up so that we can, well, first off, we fixed a bug with our enemy being able to just kind of phase through these barricades that we have set up here. So now it just stops at the barricade and can't go through it. Another thing that we did is we gave the player the ability to pause the game and unpause the game. So now what I want to do is I want to um, display that we have paused the game, because as of right now it just stops everything that's going on, and it just doesn't really look like we're paused. But So anyways, the way I want to do this, I want to do this in two different ways. One way is I want to add a little bit of animation into our game. And I just want to add basically animation to like these coin objects. I'm going to make them spin, and it's just going to make our game a little bit more lifelike, I guess. Give it a little bit more life. So the way I want to do this, first I want to create a new folder in our asset folder. I'm going to call this animations. And then the next thing I want to do is in our prefabs on our coin prefab, I'm going to open that up by double clicking it. What I want to do is if you go up at the top to window under animation and animation, and it'll open up this animation window down here. It might open up free floating, I just like to dock it down in our game window. So with our prefab object selected, let's click create in our animation, and I want to make sure that we save this to the right folder, so I'm going to go back to assets and animations. I'm just going to call this coin. So what that's going to do is in our animations folder, it's going to create the animation here, and it'll also create an animation controller. And basically what the controller is just basically a controller for all of our animations for this particular object, because we might have multiple different animations in here for other things. But for right now, we're just going to have the one simple animation here. And I don't think, yeah, so it'll automatically create this animator component on our coin prefab as well and reference that animation controller. So in our animations, what I want to do in our animation window is if I just go ahead and click record, what record's going to do is it's going to record all the changes that are made to this prefab throughout this timeline. So I want to make sure that the timeline is set to 0, and then I want to rotate it on our y-axis, but I want our starting point to be 0. And since we haven't made any changes, it's not actually recording that it's at 0. So I'm going to change it to 1, and then you'll see that it pops up with these blue little diamonds here saying that a change was made. Now I want to change that back to 0 for our starting point. So then I'm going to go a little bit along the timeline, and I'm going to change it to 90 degrees. I'm going to go a little more down the timeline, change it to 180, and a little more, go to 70, and one more time to 360. Just like that. I'm going to stop recording by clicking the record button again. And then if we just hit play right here, it'll give us a preview of what it's going to look like. So I think I like that. It's just, rotating. So if I hit play again, and then go back out into our game, since we did this on the prefab, once we hit play, it should automatically apply it to all of these coins. Just like that. And I like that. So now our coins are rotating, and if we hit pause, we can visually see that we are paused by the fact that they are no longer rotating. Hit pause again and they start back up. Perfect. So the next way I want to display that we're paused is basically just putting some text across our screen saying paused. So I'm going to do this in our canvas. We're going to do this in the prefab so that it'll change it in our canvas as well. And what we're going to do, we're going to create a new UI panel. And we're going to call this panel pause screen, like that. So in our scene view, I want to switch to 2D, and we already have it up here. Now, why is this? Because we're in free aspect. I'm going to switch this free aspect to I have a preset resolution for 1920 by 1080. It's a pretty standard resolution. If you don't have this in here, you can just click add new and then type it in here, 1920 by 1080, and hit OK. But I'm going to switch it to that. And now that looks a little bit better. So what do I want to do now? So on our, not on our score, on our pause screen, I want to right click on the pause screen. Actually, before I do that, I want to make sure that this is fully scaled to the size. It automatically defaulted to the size of our canvas, which isn't always the case. But if it's not for you, just click and drag it out to the size of our canvas. And actually, it's already defaulted to kind of the color that I want too, but I'm going to make it a little bit darker. So I'm going to click on the color here on our pause screen, and I'm going to change our alpha, let's see, up to, let's say right about there, 198. Let's do a solid 200 on that. So, and what that does is it just kind of creates this like faded almost look on it. If I were to make this inactive, this is what our game looks like. And when we pause our game, we want it to activate and have this kind of screen over it. So now what I want to do is on our pause screen, I want to right click and create a UI text. And I'm going to call this pause text. And then what I want the pause text to say is just paused. So I'm going to make sure that this is centered in our screen, which it is. I'm going to center the text over here. I'm going to actually make this bigger. Make sure it's centered. I'm going to change the font size to a lot of it bigger, like that. And I don't like this black color that it has. I'm going to make it more white. And I'm going to bring the alpha down a little bit on it, just so it's kind of faded into it. So, yeah, I kind of like the look of that. Maybe make it a little smaller, like that. So now, what I want to do is I want to call this in our script. So I want to set this to inactive so that it's not automatically turned on. And then in our, let's see, game manager script is where we're controlling our pause. Open that up. Let's see, where are we pausing? We are pausing right here. What we also want to do is we want to actually create a reference to the animator that we just created. So we're going to say private. Now we're going to do this public. animator, and we're going to call this coin, no, pause, no. I don't even know what I'm doing. So we are not trying to call the animator, we are calling the UI manager, which we already have a reference to. So if we just go back down here onto isPaused, we want to set isPaused to true, timescale to 0, and we want to say our UI manager dot, hang on, so, sorry, I'm having a couple of brain farts right now. I want to go into our UI manager first before anything, and we need to create a reference to our pause text in our panel. Or not even our pause text, because we're not actually going to change anything about the text. We just want to create a reference to the panel. So we're going to say public, not panel, game object, and the game object is our pause screen, and then in our start, we're going to say pause screen is equal to game object dot find, and we want to find our pause screen, like that. I think that's what we called it, right? If I can hear pause screen. So now that we have a reference here, we're going to save that, and we're going to go back into our game manager, and where we are pausing the game, we're going to say UI manager dot pause screen dot set active to true, and then we're going to do the same thing if we are already paused and we hit the P button. We're going to say UI manager dot pause screen dot set active to false, like that. And then we can save our script, go back into Unity, wait for it to compile, and hit play. And now when we pause our game, the coins will stop rotating and our pause screen will not pop up because it did not reference our pause screen. So let's just do it this way. Let's just go up here into our UI manager. We can get rid of this because I don't want to do it that way. Save our script, go back, and then we can say on our prefabs, on our canvas, in our UI manager, our pause screen, our pause screen is our pause screen, like that. So now if we hit play, and now we pause the game, it visually shows that our game is paused by popping up with this pause screen. We hit pause again, and it unpauses. That is exactly what we want. So I think that's going to do it for this video. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below. and I will see you next time.